Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of Tales of Terror, where we delve into the realms of the unknown and explore spine-tingling stories that will leave you questioning the boundaries of reality. I'm your host, and tonight we have a special treat in store for you. Joining us is the protagonist of our haunting tale, Jack. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Although I must admit, I would much rather be anywhere but in the midst of this terrifying ordeal.
I can only imagine, Jack. Your story has already sent shivers down our spines. Let's dive right in. You mentioned that the strange occurrences began after the passing of your father 4 months ago. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Certainly. My father's death was a devastating blow, and since then, I've been living alone in our house. About a week ago, I started experiencing something truly inexplicable. The door to my father's room began opening and closing with tremendous force. At first, I attributed it to the wind, but the intensity of the movement made me question that explanation.
That sounds incredibly unnerving. It's understandable that you would seek to secure the room. What steps did you take to try and prevent these nocturnal disturbances?
I took every precaution I could think of. I locked the room door with the key, hoping that it would put an end to this mysterious phenomenon. But to my horror, the next morning, I found the door wide open with the handle broken. At that point, I was beginning to suspect a possible break-in, but there were no signs of theft or any disturbance outside the door.
How perplexing. It must have been incredibly frustrating not being able to find a rational explanation for what was happening. Tell us, Jack, what happened when you mustered up the courage to confront the door directly?
Yesterday, I finally summoned the courage to face the source of my terror head-on. I approached the room and observed the door as it opened and closed. What I saw was utterly confounded. The movement was as if someone were physically opening and closing the door, yet I couldn't see anyone or anything responsible. It's as if an unseen presence was at work, tormenting me with its invisible grip.
That's truly chilling, Jack. The idea of an unseen entity toying with you is the stuff of nightmares. And now you find yourself torn between fear and curiosity, wanting to investigate further. Can you share your thoughts on this internal struggle?
It's an agonizing predicament, really. On one hand, I'm paralyzed by fear, afraid to venture out of my room, fearing what awaits me beyond that door. But on the other hand, my curiosity is eating away at me. I yearn to uncover the truth, to understand the nature of this haunting, and hopefully find a way to bring it to an end. It's a constant battle within myself, a desperate desire for answers mixed with an overwhelming sense of dread.
Now, Jack, before we get into the last turn of events, let's discuss the advice you received from your friend Tom. He suggested that your father's belongings might be the cause of these disturbances and that you should remove them from the room. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Tom believed that the presence of my father's belongings in the room might be attracting these supernatural occurrences. He suggested that I take them out and burn them to sever any connection they might have with the disturbing phenomena. As much as it pained me to part with items that held such sentimental value, I knew I had to try something before the haunting drove me out of my own home.
That must have been an incredibly difficult decision to make, Jack, considering the emotional attachment you had to your father's belongings. Can you walk us through the process and what you experienced after removing those items?
It was indeed one of the hardest things I've had to do. I gathered everything that reminded me of my father from the room and proceeded to burn them. It felt like bidding farewell to a part of him all over again. Once the room was completely empty, I hoped that the disturbances would cease. and for a while, it seemed like they did. I finally found some respite and managed to fall asleep.
That temporary respite must have been a relief, Jack. However, it appears that the haunting was not yet ready to release its grip on you. Could you share what transpired after you fell asleep?
Of course, I drifted off into a restless sleep, only to be abruptly awakened by the sound of doors opening and closing forcefully within the apartment. The chilling echoes reverberated through the quiet night, filling me with an eerie sense of dread. Instinctively, I felt compelled to investigate, so I cautiously made my way toward the source of the unsettling noises.
The suspense is truly palpable, Jack. What did you discover when you reached the source of those haunting sounds?
As I descended to the ground floor, my heart pounding, I caught sight of a horrifying sight, a black cat with eyes that seemed to emit an otherworldly glow. Its presence alone sent shivers down my spine, as if it were an embodiment of the supernatural forces tormenting me. It stood there, a stark contrast against the darkness, and I couldn't help but wonder if this feline creature held the key to unraveling the mysteries that plagued my home.
A black cat is often associated with superstitions and folklore. Its appearance in this already terrifying narrative adds an additional layer of unease. Jack, did you have any previous encounters or beliefs that would explain the significance of this feline's presence?
Surprisingly, I had no prior encounters with black cats or any strong beliefs surrounding them. However, folklore and popular culture often depict black cats as omens of misfortune or even as familiars to supernatural entities. Seeing this creature in the midst of my haunted existence couldn't be a mere coincidence. It felt like a message from the unknown, urging me to further uncover the truth behind the inexplicable events.
It's really interesting, Jack. The arrival of the black cat certainly raises more questions than answers. What thoughts or emotions did you experience with this crafty entity sparking within you?
The sight of that black cat stirred up a whirlwind of emotions in me: fear, curiosity, and a sense of being drawn to something far greater than myself.
Jack, you have discovered something sleeping in your place, a figure covered in a blanket. Can you share what was revealed after you got close to the bed and took off the cover?
In fact, as I mustered up the courage to unveil the figure under the blanket, my heart raced with anticipation. However, much to my surprise, when I removed the cover, there was nothing there, just an empty bed. It was as if whatever was occupying my place had vanished into thin air. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that existence seemed to dissipate, at least for a moment.
How perplexing, Jack. The sudden disappearance of the mysterious figure raises even more questions about the nature of the supernatural forces at play. But it appears that your respite was short-lived. Can you describe the unsettling encounter you had when you caught a glimpse of someone behind you in the mirror?
Yes, sir, I turned to the mirror, and when I looked at its reflective surface, my blood froze. I saw someone standing behind me, an entity that exuded an overwhelming sense of terror. Its appearance defied any human appearance. It was a terrifying being. The mere sight of me forced me to flee the room, sheer panic engulfing my mind. I took refuge in my father's room, desperately hoping to find some solace within its walls.
The imagery you're painting, Jack, is nothing short of a waking nightmare. Seeking refuge in your father's room seems like a natural instinct in such terrifying circumstances. But as we know, the disturbances you faced have shown relentless persistence. Can you recount what transpired when the door to your father's room started opening on its own, despite being securely closed?
It was as if the supernatural forces were mocking my attempts at finding safety. The door to my father's room, which I had firmly shut, began to creak open before my eyes. I peered into the hallway, expecting to see a physical presence responsible for the disturbance, but there was no one there. I stood frozen in the corner, consumed by fear and uncertainty, unsure of what my next move should be. It felt like a maddening cycle, with each step I took only leading to further terror.
The sense of helplessness you must have experienced is unimaginable, Jack. And then, you mentioned hearing a voice, one that sounded eerily similar to your father's but filled with anger and annoyance. Can you elaborate on this bone-chilling encounter?
Yes, sir. As I stood trembling in the corner, a voice came out of the darkness, an unmistakable voice very much like my father's. But she was distorted and full of anger and annoyance towards me. She called my name, but the tone gave me chills. I could not understand why my father's voice, which should have been reassuring, had said something so serious. It was as if an unseen force was manipulating his familiar voice to torment and terrify me.
That is beyond chilling, Jack. The manipulation of something so familiar and comforting can only intensify the horror of your situation. And then, you described the floor tiles cracking and a black hand emerging. What happened next?
The terror rose to new heights as the floor tiles below me began to crack, one after another. I watched in horror as a black hand emerged from the torn roof, its fist tied around my leg.
Jack, before we go any further, could you please explain the events that led to your current state of distress and the traumatic encounter you had with your neighbor?
It's a terrifying turn of events. With the supernatural escalating, I found myself in a state of utter terror. One fateful day, she cried out in utter despair, caught in the relentless grip of the chase. It was then that my neighbor, attracted by my cries, discovered me lying in the middle of my apartment, surrounded by my blood. I don't remember what happened, but the image of my open apartment door and my wounded self is etched in my mind.
The gravity of the situation is truly harrowing, Jack. It's understandable that you feel compelled to take immediate action and leave this haunting behind. Can you share what steps you have taken to escape this nightmare?
Certainly, sir. The fear has become overwhelming, and I cannot bear to remain in that dilapidated dwelling any longer. I turned to my friend Tom, and we've spent the last 2 days together trying to find a solution. Tom came back from my apartment with a black bag emitting an unsettling aura. Within it, he revealed strands of blood-stained hair, a bewildering piece of paper filled with unintelligible writings, and even a human eye. It was a disturbing sight, to say the least.
The contents of that bag sound deeply unsettling, Jack. The significance of such items and their connection to the haunting remains a mystery. However, it seems you made a decision to return to the apartment. What prompted you to take such a risky step?
Despite the terror I've experienced, I couldn't bear the thought of abandoning my home completely. I hoped that by confronting the horrors head-on, I could find some closure and bring an end to this nightmare. With Tom by my side, offering support and guidance, we mustered the courage to return to the apartment, ready to face whatever awaited us within those haunted walls.
Your determination to face the unknown is commendable, Jack. Were there any thoughts or emotions racing through your mind as you prepared to enter the apartment again?
My mind is filled with a whirlwind of emotions, fear, trepidation, but also a glimmer of hope that we can bring an end to these horrors. I know that the path ahead is treacherous, but I am willing to face it head-on in the hopes of finding answers and restoring peace to my life. I can only hope that our efforts will not be in vain.
Jack, you make the brave decision to re-enter your father's room, only to discover broken tiles and a sticking bag of debris. Can you describe what happened from there?
It was a disturbing sight. The room that once contained my father's memories was now in ruins, with broken tiles strewn on the floor. The most disturbing discovery was the protruding bag of broken tiles, a bag that seemed to radiate ominous energy as if it contained something dark and forbidden. Each bag is full of cursed items, full of action. It left me wondering if my father had indulged in witchcraft or deception, despite my earlier belief that nothing was right. However, before I could process the implications, Tom delivered a sudden punch that sent me crashing to the floor.
That sudden act of aggression from Tom must have been shocking, Jack. Can you shed some light on what transpired after that? His words seem to suggest that there was more to your father's actions than met the eye.
Yes, sir. I was blown away by Tom's punch and the subsequent rush. He accused me of forgetting an event 5 years earlier, where I allegedly approached him with a plan to trick my father into selling the apartment for immigration money. He claimed that I wanted him to provide a ruse to persuade my father to sell, but the plan failed, and my father became aware of our intentions. To my surprise, my father confronts me about it, revealing that he found evidence of our scheme in his room. It was then that he vowed to make me regret my actions, even beyond the grave. Tom's revelation made it all clear, and I realized the true extent of my father's anger.
The web of deception and manipulation woven by your father is truly chilling, Jack. It seems that his supernatural influence extends even after his passing. Can you explain the peculiar phenomenon you've encountered with potential buyers retracting their offers on the apartment?
It's a puzzling situation, sir. Every time I try to sell the condo, the buyers inexplicably change their minds and back out of their offers. When I question them, they remain silent, refusing to give an explanation. You have created a strange cycle where selling the apartment becomes an impossible task. It is as if my father's malevolent spirit continues to take over, ensuring that I remain trapped within its haunted confines.
The level of tempo you find yourself in is really sad, Jack. Living with the terror growing day by day must take an immeasurable toll on your psyche. As we wrap up this story, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners?
The horrors I experienced within the confines of this apartment are beyond comprehension, my master every day bringing me a new horror, driving me to the brink of my sanity. I implore our listeners to stay tuned and follow my harrowing journey as I navigate the depths of this predicament. Perhaps, together, we can unravel the mysteries and find a way to break free from the clutches of this relentless nightmare.
With this shocking revelation, we conclude today's episode of Tales of Terror. We delve into the darkness that haunts Jack's life, uncovering the web of terror and supernatural deceit that left him trapped inside his home. I urge all of you to subscribe to our podcast and join us on this harrowing adventure. Stay tuned for future episodes. There are more terrifying stories waiting to be shared, and more spooky encounters to send shivers down your spine. So, we waited for a new episode, as we delve into the realms of the unknown and explore the dark recesses of the human experience. Brace yourselves, dear listeners, because there is more fear and terror ahead. Until then, stay alert, lock your doors, and remember that darkness awaits us all.